The forest was still. Mist clung to the trees, dripping from the branches like blood. Crows circled overhead, their cries echoing through the silence. Beneath the canopy, the ground was a grave. Broken shields half buried in mud, spears jutting from the soil like weeds. Helmets rusting, their owners long devoured. And bodies, scattered, torn, nailed to tree trunks in mockery of their discipline. Roman legionaries, once the pride of the empire, reduced to carrion for wolves. For 3 days and nights, the Germanic tribes had hunted them, surrounded them, butchered them. Now, in the shadows of Teutoburg Forest, 3 entire legions lay annihilated. 20,000 soldiers gone. Their standards captured, their officers slaughtered, their commander died by his own hand. Rome, the empire that had conquered Gaul, crushed Carthage, humbled Macedon, had met a terror it could not tame. When the news reached Augustus in Rome, the emperor tore his robes and beat his head against the wall. For weeks, he wandered his palace at night, crying out, "Quintilius Verus, give me back my legions." But the dead do not return, and Rome would never again march blindly into the forests of Germania. For centuries, Rome had been a machine of conquest. In the west, it had devoured Gaul under Julius Caesar. In the east, it had broken the kingdoms of Greece and Macedon. In the south, it had reduced mighty Carthage to ash. Every frontier it touched seemed to crumble. The legion, with its discipline and steel, was thought invincible. By the time Augustus reigned, Rome's powers stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the deserts of Arabia, from the Nile to the Rhine. And beyond the Rhine, a new frontier beckoned, Germania. Germania was not a single nation, but a vast wilderness. Endless forests, tangled rivers, treacherous swamps. Its people, the Cherusci, the Chatti, the Brutteri, and countless others, were fierce, independent, and proud. They fought not in disciplined ranks, but in wild charges, shrieking into battle with axes, spears, and long hair flowing. They had no cities of stone, no temples of marble, no written laws. To Rome, they were barbarians. But they were not weak. They were hunters, raiders, survivors of a land too harsh for luxury, and they hated being ruled. At first, Rome believed Germania could be tamed as Gaul had been. Roman governors set up garrisons east of the Rhine, built roads, collected tribute. They dreamed of making Germania a province, its forests cut into farms, its people taxed, its warriors turned into auxiliaries. For a time, it seemed to work. Some chieftains allied with Rome, trading loyalty for wealth. Some even sent their sons to be raised in Roman ways, to wear togas, learn Latin, serve in legions. One of those sons was named Arminius. In 7 CE, Augustus appointed Publius Quintilius Verus as governor of Germania. Verus was not a warrior, but a bureaucrat, a man known more for law courts than battlefields. He treated Germania as though it were already Rome, imposing heavy taxes, punishing rebels with crucifixions, demanding obedience. To the tribes, this was an insult. They had not been conquered, yet they were treated as slaves. Resentment simmered, tribes whispering of revolt. But Verus did not listen. He trusted his Roman allies. He trusted especially one man, Arminius. Commander of auxiliary cavalry, Verus believed Arminius his friend. He never saw the knife until it was too late.
Arminius had indeed served Rome. He had worn its armor, ridden in its cavalry, even earned citizenship and honors. But his loyalty was never Rome's. His heart remained with his people, the Cherusci. As he rode with Verus, he was secretly weaving alliances among the tribes. He promised them freedom. When the time came, he told Verus of a revolt in the north, a rebellion that must be crushed quickly. Trusting him, Verus marched his legions deep into Germania, away from their forts, into forests they did not know. into the trap Arminius had set. The legions marched into the trees, their banners proud, their discipline unbroken. They did not know that in 3 days' time, Rome's invincibility would die in the mud of Teutoburg. It was late summer, 9 CE. Publius Quintilius Verus led 3 legions into the forests of Germania. With him marched auxiliaries, cavalry, camp followers, wagons heavy with supplies. Nearly 20,000 soldiers, another 5,000 traders and families. The road was long and slow. Rain turned the ground into muck. Wagons groaned. Men sank knee-deep in mud. Trees pressed close on either side, cutting off visibility. The perfect army of Rome stretched thin into a stumbling column. And always at Verus's side was Arminius, his ally, his guide, his betrayer. Arminius had warned Verus of rebellion. Tribes to the north, he said, had risen. He promised to rally auxiliaries and lead them to Verus's aid. Verus believed him, released him to recruit, and Arminius vanished into the trees. There, in the dark, the trap was sprung. The forest erupted. Suddenly the trees came alive. Spears flew from the shadows. Arrows hissed down. Germanic warriors, painted, screaming, hair flying, surged from the undergrowth. The legions staggered. Their column was too long, too tangled to form into proper battle lines. Shields locked, but the forest was too tight for the legion's formations. Rain poured. Mud swallowed sandals. Wagons overturned. Horses panicked. The order that made Rome invincible dissolved into chaos. The forest belonged to Arminius, and Rome was no longer an army, it was prey. The Germans struck everywhere at once, from behind trees, from the tops of ridges, from bogs the Romans thought impassable. Legionaries fell by the hundreds, unable to see their attackers. Every attempt to form ranks collapsed as the ground shifted beneath them. By nightfall, thousands were dead. The survivors huddled behind makeshift barricades, the screams of the wounded mixing with the howls of wolves. Verus tried to rally them, but his men no longer looked like legions. They looked like victims. At dawn, they tried to march again, but the rain did not stop. The ground grew worse. Wagons broke. Supplies were abandoned. The army starved as they staggered deeper into the forest. Legionaries fought desperately, hacking back at charging tribesmen, but every victory meant nothing. Another wave followed. By night, exhaustion crushed them. On the 3rd day, the Romans broke. The legions tried one last march, but the Germans had built walls of earth and wood along the path, turning the road itself into a trap. From above, spears and stones rained down. Verus, realizing all was lost, fell on his own sword rather than be taken alive. Commanders followed. By nightfall, the legions no longer existed. The survivors, a few hundred at most, were captured. Many were sacrificed on altars, their blood poured out to the gods of the forest. Others were nailed to trees, left to rot as warnings. The empire's pride, broken, devoured, left for crows. And Rome's invincibility drowned in the rain. The barbarians had done what Carthage, Macedon, even Persia could not. They had destroyed Rome's pride and carved fear into its heart forever.
Years later, Rome tried to avenge the dead. In 14 CE, the general Germanicus, nephew of Tiberius, marched across the Rhine with vast armies. He struck hard, burning villages, slaughtering tribes, sowing terror. He fought Arminius himself in open battle, and, though victories were claimed, the forests swallowed the triumphs. Germanicus did recover 2 of the lost standards, pried from barbarian shrines where they had been worshipped, but he could not destroy Arminius nor conquer the land. At last, Tiberius recalled him. Rome would not pour more blood into the German woods. The frontier hardened. The dream of conquering Germania died. Arminius, the man who had broken Rome, did not live to see peace. He became too powerful, too proud, a king in all but name. His own people turned on him, assassinating him before he could build the empire he imagined. But Rome never forgot him. To some, he was a traitor, a Roman citizen who betrayed his oath. To others, he was a liberator, the man who saved his people from Roman chains. To Rome itself, he was a scar. For centuries after, the Rhine remained Rome's border. Fortresses rose along its banks. Beyond it, the empire did not march. The forests of Germania became a graveyard of ambition. Later emperors would campaign there, but always cautiously, never to conquer, always to punish. The fear of another Teutoburg whispered in every tree. The memory of the lost. Generations later, when Roman soldiers passed into those woods, they found bones, skulls nailed to trees, rusted armor, the ghosts of the legions still lying where they fell. Tacitus wrote of how soldiers buried them, weeping, decades after the slaughter. The earth itself seemed cursed. The 17th, the 18th, and the 19th, their names never spoken again, their memory left as a warning. The War of Teutoburg was not the largest Rome ever fought. It was not the bloodiest, but it was the one that broke the illusion of invincibility. Rome had believed itself eternal, its armies unstoppable. In Gaul, in Greece, in Carthage, no enemy had stood forever. But in the dark forests of Germania, the barbarians showed that empire had limits. Augustus never forgot. Tiberius never risked again. Later emperors fortified but never conquered. The line was drawn not by Rome, but by barbarians who fought in shadows. All empires fall. But long before Rome crumbled under its own weight, it learned in Teutoburg that even gods of war can bleed. The forest whispered it. The bones testified to it. The memory of the legions screamed it. The barbarians could not destroy Rome in a single war, but they had planted something far more dangerous than spears. They had planted fear.